Kristen Harrell, DTM, PDD. There is no box. Kristen Harrell, DTM, PDD. There is no box.
How many of you have heard the phrase, think outside of the box? Or break the glass ceiling? Those are phrases that have been around for a long time. But I'm here to tell you that they're a bunch of bull. There is no box and there is no ceiling, except the one that other people or ourselves create. The first time I was put in a box was in high school. I was 16 years old and I told my counselor I wanted to be a teacher. I loved little kids. I wanted to teach kindergarten. She looked at my grades, she looked at all of my test scores, and she said, no. Your scores are all high in math. You need to be an accountant. Not knowing myself well enough, I accepted the little box that she put me in. And at 18, I started out my college career as an accounting major. A year and a half later, I dropped out of college. I was so disenchanted. I didn't like accounting. I didn't like the classes. I didn't like how stuffy some of the people were. It was not for me. I took a year and a half off and finally realized that I had allowed somebody to define my box. When I went back to college as an education major and finished, I had 2 kids in tow. It was a lot harder. Had I gotten myself out of this made up box that didn't really exist at 18 years old, my life would have been completely different. The first time I encountered a fake ceiling was my first major job at a construction company. You can imagine a construction company that was owned by 3 brothers, did not have a lot of high-level females. There was a couple secretaries and a couple receptionists. That was pretty much it. When I got promoted to project manager, they told me, this is as far as you will go because no female will ever be an executive at this company. And when I asked for a raise, they said, we have never paid a female higher than $52,000 a year. I had learned my lesson at this point. I realized this is a fake ceiling. They have created a fake ceiling for me and I'm not accepting it. I made myself indispensable. I learned every single thing I could about their business. I got so good at running their business that they weren't sure what they would do without me. By the time I left that company after 18 years, I was the operations manager of a $20 million a year company, making well into the 6 figures. Because I did not let them define that ceiling. I think a lot of us start feeling those boxes and those ceilings as children. Oh, honey, you're not that coordinated. I don't think athletics is your thing. Oh, honey, you're the smart one, not the pretty one. Pageants, probably not your thing. We start believing at a young age that those boxes and those ceilings are real. And we go into adulthood not just allowing other people to create them for us, but creating them for ourselves. Oh, I'm just a mom, or I'm just a wife. I'm not good at things. I'm an introvert. I can't be a Toastmaster. We allow those things to happen to us by our own creation or by others, instead of trying things and seeing who we are and what we can do. I don't know about you, but there are a lot of things going on in my life right now that never could have happened if I had stayed inside this made-up box, or if I had stayed under this made-up ceiling. Had I not learned at a young age that those don't really exist, I would not be where I am today. How many people have put you in a box? How many times have you created a ceiling for yourself? It's a load of bull. I'm telling you, they don't exist. Don't allow yourself to be put in a box or under a ceiling, because you were meant to fly, and you cannot fly from inside a box or under a ceiling. Just focus on who you are, who you want to be, and reach as high as you possibly can. Madam Toastmaster.
It's Daniel Glasser. Screw it. Why not try? Screw it. Why not try? Daniel Glasser.
Gee, before we get started with the speech, I don't mind doing my pet first, so I'm just going to do that. So, might be a little hard to tell here because of how much other stuff is going on in the picture, but on the side is my beautiful beloved Teller. She was named after Penn and Teller, the magicians, but since we've obtained them, Penn has passed away. So initially, Simba, the cat that my father talked about, Richard, he passed away, and we were waiting for a while to have him recover, be comfortable getting new cats again. And at a certain point, me, my mom, and my brother kind of talked about it, and we're like, do we think he's ready for new cats yet? So we asked him, and he was stoked with the idea. And Penn and Teller were the new cats that we got because some of my mom's friends were both downsizing their apartment and couldn't take the pets with them. Now, really, Teller should be presenting us as being the pets for this, because really, she's our owner, of course, and she gets what she wants a lot of the time, except for food, because that's dietary and would impact her health. But she'll always be begging for her food, circling the kitchen an hour before it's time for a meal, meowing up a storm, annoying everyone in the house. Also, one thing that she did a few years into having her, once she got more comfortable, is she started realizing that if she would tap on windowsills or on the back door when she wanted to be let out or have the window be open, just to look at the view, she could do that, because usually my dad would cave and would let her outside, or would open the window for her. So she really is the boss around the family, but we all absolutely adore her, and she's clung to my brother before. Now that he's gone, she pesters my mom all the time, and she's amazing. Now, that being out of the way, also before I start my speech, with it being 10 to 12 minutes, one thing I do want anyone who wants to give an evaluation to focus on is things you think can be omitted. I want to try to get better about doing shorter speeches that are closer to that 5 to 7 minute zone. So if you have any suggestions for part that you thought seemed like filler, went on excessively, or just ways that I could go about shortening the story without losing the value of it, then please keep that in mind, and I'd love to hear it. Okay, now I'm ready to start my speech. Okay. For the past few years now, I've always had at the back of my mind the thought of potentially one day just joining some long form race to just test my capabilities as a runner. Now, I'm not talking anything crazy like 100 miles like my mom had ran. That's just insanity. But I figured something more achievable like a half marathon at some point would be more reasonable. But I never ended up really getting the motivation to do it, never had a reason to actually commit to signing up until last semester while I was studying abroad. I was having a conversation with some of the people that I was studying abroad with out over some dinner, and Gio mentioned that she was doing a half marathon on December 1st. And this conversation was around the end of October. So it was a little over a month out. Initially, I didn't think much of it, just thought it was really cool and asked her more about what motivated her to do that and just asking about what the future of her running career is. And she wants to do a marathon next semester or this summer even. She started telling me how a lot of times in life she would set up goals for herself that would exceed that box that she would put on herself. She wanted to set goals that didn't seem realistic at the time because a lot of the times she'd end up achieving them anyway. And that really motivated me in conjunction with the fact I already wanted to do a half marathon to just screw it. Why not try? So like 2 days later, I ended up signing up for it. Now, initially, I'd been a bit concerned that I wouldn't make the time limit. There was a 3-hour limit on it, and I just didn't know my capabilities because I really haven't run much in the previous years. I was going into this with essentially no training. So about a week later, I decided I was just going to run an hour and a half and just see what my capabilities were. I was expecting to maybe run 6 miles, 7 miles if I was doing really good. I ended up breaking my expectation, my box, and running 9 miles, which for anyone who's not amazing at math, is about a 10-minute pace per mile, meaning for a half marathon, if I kept going, would be 2 hours and 10 minutes, way exceeding the 3-hour limit. So suddenly I had a new goal in mind. I wanted to try to shoot for a 2-hour time, see if I could really push myself, shave off those 10 minutes, and do a half marathon faster than I ever could have expected previously. Well, for the rest of the month, I unfortunately didn't do as much training as I wanted, but occasionally run to people's apartments or to school and back, but didn't really have many opportunities to really focus on the running aspect. And soon enough, it was already race day. Now, I wish that I could end the speech way earlier and just say, oh, the race went well. I ended up getting under 2 hours. But of course, nothing in life can go perfectly. In fact, far from it. So initially, we thought that the race was supposed to start at 9:40. It said it on the website and any other source we saw. But when I got my bib the day before, it said that the race was supposed to be starting at 8:30, over an hour earlier. So the morning of, I'm contacting Gio, and actually I forgot to mention Scotty also signed up for it. I was contacting both of them. They're the only names to keep in mind. And frantically trying to figure out, like, is it really 8:30? Is it 9:40? Which time is it? When are we trying to get there? So we had fortunately gotten up plenty early, and we're going to try to shoot to just get there at 8:30 anyway, even if it really was 9:40. Just be there plenty early. Well, another thing we forgot to account for was the fact that this was Sunday morning, super early in the morning at about 7 a.m. And the race is a pretty big deal. So a lot of the bus systems were not running. The vast majority just were not on Google Maps. There were only about 4 options. And they all would take over an hour to get there. Suddenly, it wasn't looking so likely that we were going to get there by 8:30. But we had to try. What other choice do we have? So took the metro, got as close as I could to the race, found the nearest bus that would get me there, and I was going to have to wait for 25 minutes to get on the bus, and it would take me straight there. Well, a bit of time passes, and I see bus 18 coming. That wasn't listed on Google Maps. What is going on? I try to look it up before it leaves, and it's gone before I could figure out. It was actually going where I needed it to go quicker. Why it popped up so late on Google Maps, I don't know. I had checked 5 minutes earlier and it wasn't there, but I didn't get an opportunity to get there sooner before 8:30 through that. A little bit more time passes. It's just a few minutes until my designated bus is supposed to get there, the one that I wanted to take, and another 18 comes. I wasn't 100% sure it would have the same route, but I just decided I'm just going to take this. I honestly don't trust that the other bus is even going to come. I'm just going to risk it. And it turns out Gio and Scotty were there. So the whole crew is assembled. We're all heading to the race now. Surely we're gonna just take the buses and everything's gonna go fine. Well, that would be the case if it wasn't for all the circumstances with the race and it being Sunday. We arrive at a spot where we're supposed to transfer buses, which is a completely normal thing. But instead, bus 42, our transfer arrives, and the bus driver just gets off the bus. We ask him, why are you getting off the bus? Are we not continuing the route? And he's like, oh, the route's done for the day. That's not what it said on Google Maps. And he proceeds to just go start having a smoke break in the nearby cafe. Thanks a lot for that, dude. So at this point, we're getting really stressed out. We're already definitely not going to make it for 8:30, but we still have plenty of time to get there by 9:40, and we're pretty confident that that is when the half marathon starts. Then we start to look for other options. We look at taxis, we look at Ubers, we call, we order them, and every single one would either cancel the order, or a couple of them even just would have the time until it was supposed to arrive just increase continually. So clearly, our area just was not accepting taxis and Ubers, and it wasn't going to work out. Okay, time for plan C. We're going to take Lime scooters. At this point, this was going to already take us close to 9:40. But what other choice did we have? So, and for anyone unfamiliar, Lime scooters, I'm not sure how popular they are around the world. They're essentially just electric scooters that you can rent for really cheap, but obviously they're pretty slow because regular people can just hop on at any time. So we try to find some, we have to walk the distance already to get to them, and then we split up, get on our Lime scooters. Of course, mine is nearly dead, so I have to go find another one, and then start booking it there once I finally have one with enough charge. Surely that's the end. Surely we're gonna get there. Well, of course, now it's time to get on to plan D, because we realize there's a dead zone where the bike or the scooters cannot drive through, likely because of the race, for a huge radius around the start line. So riding along, and all of a sudden, scooter just stops. And we have to drag it over, park it, show that it's parked safely. And plan D, the only option we had left, we were gonna have to run to the start line of our half marathon. Just truly the best circumstances to have. So we end up having to run 1.5 miles, meet up with a bunch of other people who also were cutting it close, trying to get there as well. And we end up arriving 10 minutes late because of just all the things that went wrong. But we finally arrived, and the race actually even started late. So Scotty and Gio were able to start on time. But we're not done yet. I had to go to the bathroom, and also wanted to try to get my bag and bag storage because I had a couple of Scotty's things. I had 2 jackets because it's cold, and obviously I wasn't going to wear those during the race. So I wanted to drop my bag. Well, the bag claim had already gone. It was going to the start of the race. So now not only have I run 1.5 miles, but I also have to carry my bag with me for the entire race. And the straps were not adjustable, so I was going to basically just have to carry it like this on either or alternating, because otherwise it would just swing on my back over here. So at that point, all that was left to do was to just run the marathon. Of course, the half marathon. Of course, the speech is talking about a half marathon, and almost none of it actually talks about the half marathon itself, but just how to get there. So not much really interesting happened. Around the 1:20 mark, I started to get fatigued, and around 1:40, I started considering, I've been on okay pace, but I'm definitely slowing down now. I don't think I'm gonna make it to that 2 hours. But I pushed myself, I kept trying to make up the time that I had lost, and I get to the end of the race, holding my phone, running up to the finish line, and stop the timer. 2 hours, of course it starts with a 2, 7 minutes and 6 seconds. At first I was a bit disappointed. I hadn't met my goal, even though that goal was already a more strict deadline than just finishing the race like it originally was. But that disappointment was so overshadowed by the pride I had felt. Just a little over a month before, I had no intentions of even running a half marathon. Had not ran for really years before that, and got a pretty respectable time on my first ever half marathon. I was limping around and headed over to get my medal for it. So this is the medal that I got for completing the race. And I just thought back to the conversation that I had with Gio that really sparked this entire thing. The way that she described how she would set goals that were too high because either she would achieve those goals or would fall short and still be proud of the progress she made. And that message really resonated with me now that I had done that for myself. I set a goal that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to accomplish and absolutely crushed it, even though I might have not got all the way to that under 2 hour mark. So I hope this can be similar to that conversation with Gio, where it can hopefully inspire you guys to, if you're considering a goal, of course, keep most of them reasonable so you don't quit on all of them. But if you're considering a new goal that you think might be a little too much to handle, might push your boundaries a little bit, consider just possibly saying, screw it. Why not try? Because maybe you'll be able to go a lot further than you think and push past that glass ceiling and that box that you've set for yourself. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.